Welcome to the Insomnia Project. Sit back, relax, and listen as we have a conversation about the mundane. One thing that we can promise is that our conversation will be, hopefully, less than fascinating so that you can feel free to just drift off. Thank you for joining us. We hope you will listen and sleep. I'm your host, Marco Timpano, and joining me on today's episode is a dear friend, Mark Andrada. Welcome to the Insomnia Project.
Thank you for having me.
Mark, you're a fellow podcaster.
Yeah.
And you have a podcast called We Like Theme Parks.
We do.
And tell me about that podcast.
Well, it's me and Chris Bond and Dustin Foos who do the podcast. And the three of us are all theme park enthusiasts to different degrees. Dustin is very much an insider. He used to work for the theme parks.
Oh, cool.
He worked for Disney, actually, for a while in Epcot. And Chris, as you know, is a director and a writer, and he creates these big theatrical monstrosities.
We'll have him on the show for sure. Yeah, we'll have him on. I feel like I had Chris. Yeah, I did have Chris Bond on the podcast in season 2, I want to say, for anyone who's listening. Like, I remember that name.
Yeah.
We were in a Casper mattress truck, and that's where we recorded that particular episode, Chris and I. Yeah.
Why were you in a Casper mattress
They happened to be in town. They were a sponsor of ours.
Oh.
It just kind of like all coincided.
That makes sense.
But you have this wonderful podcast, and you can find it on Stitcher, iTunes,
all the regular places, yeah.
Cool.
All the places you find podcasts.
You have a love for musical theater.
I do.
And the thing I appreciate about the musical theater and how you love it is you don't just love the big hits, the Hamiltons, the Cats, the Evitas.
The Cats, of all the hits that you drop, Cats.
Well, they're making a movie of Cats.
Yeah, they really are.
You also like the Bombs.
Oh, I love them.
Okay, so can we talk about because I've had some people on the podcast where we talked about musical theater, but I'd like to talk about some of the bombs that you have seen.
Sure.
Starting with perhaps one of your favorites.
Rocky?
Okay, Rocky the
Broadway?
musical. Okay,
Yeah,
tell me about that.
Well, it's based on the movie Rocky starring Sylvester Stallone. And I believe Sylvester Stallone was even a producer on this. It previewed in Germany.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
of all places.
Of all places, in German. And then I think they translated it to English. I don't know why they made that choice, but they did.
Sure.
And it played not very long on Broadway. I think it didn't make it through the summer. I think it opened in maybe February or March.
Okay.
And it didn't make it. It didn't make it to August, I don't think.
And why didn't it make it?
Well, I don't think there's this thing that happens on Broadway. I think that it's funny that I think what's happening is people are trying to appeal to a masculine or male audience, quote unquote.
Okay.
And it just doesn't work. I think this is what we're seeing with things like Rocky and American Psycho.
Okay.
And like these sort of like testosterone heavy, like this is a man's theater. Like this is what men see when they go see musical theater. Because they nail down the kids pretty well.
Sure.
Especially the young girls. But I think that they keep trying to get men into it, and it hasn't worked out yet, maybe, except for maybe Book of Mormon, which I think is still just for everybody.
Okay.
But Rocky, Rocky. I mean, obviously the story is incredible.
Right.
The cast was incredible.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
The cast was so good. The guy who played Rocky, whose name is escaping me right now, I don't know why, because I've seen him so many times. He was also in Groundhog Day, the musical.
Okay.
Oh, why am I blanking?
It's okay. We can look it up. No worries.
Okay.
And do you know who played so one of my favorite roles in the Rocky movie is played by Burgess Meredith. I can't remember the character's name, but he's the coach.
Yeah, Mickey.
Mickey, thank you.
Yeah.
Mickey. And do you know who played that? Like, was that actor great?
He was very good. He had a really, his role was sort of diminished.
Okay.
In the musical.
Okay.
Like he didn't have like a show-stopping number.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it really focused on Rocky and Adrian.
Okay, their love story.
Yeah. And Rocky's sort of inner struggle to become like to become who he is. The Act 1 closer is like, if you are on Spotify and feel like listening to this,
please do this. If you haven't fallen asleep yet, and you're like, what will I listen to after I finish this podcast?
This might inspire you to get up and go for a run. But it's fight from your heart. Fight from the heart.
Oh, so great.
Yeah, and he talks to himself in third person, and it is such an incredible, it's such a good song.
He talks to himself or he sings to himself?
He sings to himself.
Okay, well, because that's different.
Right.
I always sing to myself in third person.
Yeah, and it takes place, like the break happens, intermission happens right before his act of commitment, but right before he signs the contract to fight Apollo Creed. And so every time you see Rocky, that was the other thing about this show. The set design was the best set and lighting design I've ever seen.
You're not being facetious here.
No.
You're sincerely giving credit and credence to the set.
The set design, the lighting design is probably top 5 that I've ever seen. The set design, I can't think of anything that comes close. I guess SpongeBob SquarePants the musical comes close, but that's because they took over the whole theater with like a found object feel. This thing was just, anytime you saw Rocky, the ceilings of the set were low. It was cramped. It felt dirty and cramped. When he was in the pet store, it was bright and cramped. He was always like huge in these like small environments, and he always looked like he didn't fit in, and he looked uncomfortable. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
Oh, yes, I totally.
He's rock, and it's just, and everything's so squished in for a Broadway stage, and then he goes to Apollo's manager's office, and it is from the stage deck to the ceiling.
Okay.
Beautiful, bright Art Deco. And suddenly you see Rocky like standing there, and now he looks tiny, and he's just standing there, and they leave him alone with the contract to sign, and he doesn't know what he should do. And he's like, should I sign this? Like, they want a clown. Like, they want some idiot to come in here and just lose. And this is my shot.
Wow.
And he stands there with the contract, and he signs it right before the lights come down and the intermission happens. But it's such a beautiful and careful and deliberate choice to have him in these small environments, and then have him like in this huge, bright Art Deco looking thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And then at the end of the show, when it's time for them to fight, the first 10 rows of the audience, the orchestra center, get lanyards when they come in.
Oh, this is great.
And they escort them out of their seats, onto the stage, onto bleachers. And the entire stage, the ring that's on stage, that has been on stage the entire show, because it's on stage at the beginning, and then it flies away, and it doubles as the ceiling in a lot of Rocky's environments. Like, there's this ring just constantly hovering over him.
Wow.
And when it comes down for the fight and everybody's on stage, the entire thing moves out into the center of the audience.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Where was this? Which theater was that at?
I want to say the Winter Garden.
Okay.
In New York, yeah.
Wow.
And it comes out, and then all these banners come down from the box seats and from the balcony and along the walls of like the Philadelphia Flyers.
This
so
sounds amazing.
Yeah, it becomes the Philadelphia Spectrum in there. And at this point, everybody's standing. And these two guys are fighting in the ring.
Tell me they're not singing and fighting.
No, they're not.
Okay,
I wish.
Okay.
I wish.
Right.
That would have been a level of cheese that I would have enjoyed, but that didn't happen. But it's I believe it's Gonna Fly Now that's playing like the Rocky theme, the Rocky theme.
So wait a minute. So these performers are not only great musical theater performers, but they've got to be built and able to fight.
Oh, they're jacked.
Wow.
Yeah, they were jacked.
So there's a lot of like stunt coordination happening in this too.
Yeah.
This is very impressive. You're making me want to see this now.
It's on YouTube. You can find the bootleg. Somebody posted a bootleg on YouTube. I'll send it to you if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's hard to find. I don't think it's under Rocky Broadway. I think it's just RB 100, something like that.
So it sounds impressive. Why do you think it didn't have the success that it sounds like it merited? Was it the music?
I'm telling you all the good parts.
Wrong time, wrong place, wrong time?
It's one of those things. Now, I don't want to bad talk the writers of the music because I don't know them.
Sure.
But it seemed to me, watching this, that perhaps it was written by people who didn't know anything about boxing.
Okay.
And I don't know anything about boxing
Sure.
either, but I can tell when somebody is writing about something they don't know about.
Right.
And it felt like there were moments where the musical was almost, I'm gonna punch and punch some more.
Okay.
And like, there's one song in it that I like. I think I like it ironically, but I've liked it ironically for so long that I think I just like it now. And it's at the beginning of the show. It's maybe the second song or third song in, and it's "But My Nose Ain't Broken."
I mean, come on. There's memories. There's "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina."
Yeah.
And then there's
But my nose ain't broken.
Yeah.
And it's because Rocky's so proud that he's never broken his nose, right?
Right.
So he sings a song about it, about how he's in all this pain and how he's got a bruise over here, and over here. But hey, my nose ain't broken.
This is great.
It's just, I remember sitting there watching that song and just being like, well, this is why. But but I remembered it, so that's saying something. And Adrian's love song is actually really good too.
I hate to steer away from Rocky the musical, but I want to touch, because we're almost halfway through the podcast.
Okay.
I want to
just
talk
do a
about
podcast only about Rocky.
other glorious Broadway bombs. That's what I'll call this episode, because it's glorious and it's wonderful, and you have a love for it. You're not making fun. You actually have a love.
No. This isn't a Schadenfreude. Like, this isn't like I'm enjoying watching something. There's part of me that's fascinated by a lot of people spending a lot of money on something that's just a little off base.
Sure.
And I mean, like, American Psycho was one.
There's something very endearing about that, actually.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel for this attempt at doing something great and missing the mark ever so slight or ever so large.
And you're also dealing with like such supreme talent.
Sure.
Like, the cast was unbelievable. The cast of all of these shows are just next level.
I had a friend in American Psycho.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who were they?
Drew Moreline. He was one of the
businessmen?
Yes.
The guys?
Yeah, I think so. I hadn't seen it, but he was in it, and it was great.
He sings the song about cards, their business cards.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. It's so good.
So what was it? What did you love about American Psycho?
American Psycho was difficult because I felt like the cast knew what they were doing, and I feel like the writers and producers maybe wanted it to be a bit more serious than it was. I don't think they understood the satire.
Okay.
Or it didn't, I don't want to say they didn't understand because I don't know, but the satire didn't come across in the way that I think it needed to for that show to be a success.
I see. Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, there's the beginning. If you listen to the beginning, the first song in the show, where he's listing all of his, like, it's like, I've got a Sony Walkman and an 18-inch television, and he's bragging about these things that were so cool in the 80s. There is a layer, now that we're so removed from it, where we go, this is idiotic. Like, what is this lifestyle? But this guy really exists, and he still exists today.
Sure, most certainly.
Yeah, and so, like, satirizing that kind of a person, I think, still works. But I think it was treated with a little too much sincerity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
It could have afforded to be a little more tongue-in-cheek, or in on itself.
And I think the actors knew that, and I think the actors, because I saw it 2 nights to closing. Okay. This is usually what happens, is I get excited about a show, and it doesn't last nearly as long as I think it might. And so I have to rush off to New York to see it.
Okay.
And so this was one of those where I rushed off, and I got to see the second or third last show. So they were really hamming it up.
Okay.
And they were leaning in hard. And the lead guy was making a ton of jokes. And he would hold these beautiful pauses and make faces at the audience. He went off script at one point when somebody came in late and just started yelling at them from the stage, basically chastising them from the stage for coming in late. They were sitting in the second row. So he knew.
Right.
He could see them.
Another bomb that you love?
Let's see, another bomb that I love.
Did you see Carrie, the musical?
I haven't seen Carrie.
Okay.
I missed it. I wanted to see it, but that was another one.
Came
anytime it's gone up, it's gone away so fast that I haven't been able to pull it off.
Because they still do that one. It's not like it's not done anymore.
Yeah, people do it. People also do Silence of the Lambs, the musical.
Oh, I didn't even know that one.
It's meant to be funny, though.
Okay.
Like, it's sort of like... the other thing I like is an inappropriate musical. Something that's been made a musical that... Why on earth? Like, what was the choice, the initial choice?
Give me an example of an inappropriate musical.
Everything we've just said.
Okay. Oh, I thought there was one that was
it's like,
more.
Well, I mean, Silence of the Lambs is unbelievable.
Sure.
And I couldn't possibly tell you about it because it's filthy.
Okay.
It's a lot of really raunchy. SpongeBob SquarePants, which I thought, there's no way. Like, how's that going to be any good?
Right.
There's one good SpongeBob song, the Best Day Ever song that I heard because my nephew was playing it. But then I ended up seeing it because a guy was basically giving away tickets on Broadway.
I thought it was a huge success.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't know, and this is before the Tonys, so it hadn't it hadn't registered on people's radar yet. Mm-hmm. And I went to that 50% off booth in Times Square, and we had just gotten in, and I wasn't committed to seeing a show, but if there was something that I wanted to see that we could get cheap tickets, then I would do it.
Okay.
And there was a man standing there trying to scalp tickets to SpongeBob. And I said to him that I'd give him $80 for the pair. And he was trying to sell them for $100 each.
Right.
And he was livid. And he's like, no chance. And so I stood around and waited, and I watched this titles disappear from that board next to the 50% booth. So everything was getting sold out.
Right.
And finally, he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, last chance. And he goes, no. And he gave me this dirty look. And I walked away. And we walked away, and he ran up to us and said, okay, fine. And so I got these tickets for less than face value.
Okay.
And we went in, and our seats were maybe third row balcony. So they're pretty good.
Yeah.
And I was astonished because the set was everywhere.
Right.
And it was like a found object field, like underneath and around the stage were all these old 80s boom boxes that they had spray painted. And I was so excited that I wandered around the theater. I went to the washroom first, and then I wandered around the theater, and then I sat down. And my girlfriend was sitting already in our seats. And I sat down just as the show was starting. Perfect timing. Maybe the third song in the show. I leaned over and whispered to her, who wrote this? Because every song is a banger. Like, every song is incredible.
Okay.
And she said, you didn't read the program? And I said, no. She goes, you should read the program. And I couldn't read. It was too dark. So at intermission, I opened it up. Every song in that show is written by somebody else. The second song in the show is written by Brian Eno and David Bowie. It must be one of the last things he worked on.
Oh, my goodness.
T.I., the rapper T.I.,
yes,
wrote the rap that Plankton raps.
Wow.
The guys from Aerosmith wrote a song. John Legend wrote a song. They Might Be Giants wrote a song. The list is like, it's a long list.
So, Mark, is it fair to say you walked in thinking this would be a bomb?
Yeah.
And it was a glorious hit before it was a glorious hit amongst the masses?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't expect it. And then the guy who played Squidward has a tap number.
Yes, I saw it at the Tonys. Or I saw it on the Tonys on television.
And that's the same guy that originated the role of Bert in Mary Poppins.
Okay.
And if you've seen that show, he tap dances up the side of the stage and along the ceiling and then back down the other side. So this guy's like special skill is crazy, bizarre circumstance tap dancing, right? Because he's got 4 legs and he's puppeteering the other legs. Anyway, it was great. It was a real showstopper.
If you aren't able to make it to see SpongeBob SquarePants, watch the Tonys, and you'll see that gentleman's performance. It's out of this world.
Yeah, it's touring now, though. It's touring this winter.
Oh, then you know what? Based on your suggestion, when it comes to Toronto, I'm going to see it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see it with you. If you feel like going to see it.
I'll go see it again. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a bomb that you haven't seen that you wish you saw or that you hope comes back?
Oh, my gosh. You're putting me on the spot.
No, that's fine. Take your time. I'm trying to think of I know that they did, I think in the 60s, they did Frankenstein, and it was a huge bomb.
Oh, yeah.
And for some reason, I have a fascination. I would love to see that. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. I once saw, this wasn't a bomb, but it was a bomb for me. I'll talk about it so you can think of a bomb that you didn't see that you'd like to see. I saw Beauty and the Beast when it first came out on Broadway. Tom Bosley played Belle's father, and you might remember him as Mr. Cunningham from Happy Days. That's how I knew him. I know he's done quite a bit more. He was on Broadway playing the lead role of Fiorello LaGuardia back in when it first went up. Mm-hmm. I went I went long before Disney. I should say this was before Disney was releasing all their movies as musicals. So
Right.
I went thinking it would be not the Disney musical, but it would be the original adaptation from the novel. And then I saw the Disney musical on stage.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed because I had spent a lot of money. And the best part of it was the fact that I got to see Mr. Cunningham on stage. So
Yeah.
for me, it was a bomb, even though Beauty and the Beast, as we know, is a huge success.
Yeah. My favorite ones are always ones that are based on an established IP.
Okay.
And I'm just having a hard time coming up with one that was like that. But the one I can think of that I didn't see was Napoleon.
Oh.
And I'm bummed that I didn't see Napoleon, especially because of how high tech it was.
When was it? When did it come out
I
around?
want to say the mid-90s.
Okay.
And so I was too young to like take myself somewhere.
So long before Hamilton became a huge success,
Oh, yeah.
we're seeing another leader,
Yeah.
Napoleon,
Yeah.
on Broadway.
Oh, bad, bad, bad.
And why did that one fail? Or what would you have liked to see from that one that you're like, oh, I heard that they did this? And
Apparently the entire stage was on hydraulics. So when the battle happened, they were all marching uphill and the entire stage moved so that they were climbing a hill.
oh, man.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Almost as good as I did see Titanic. And when the ship sinks.
Wait a minute. There was a Titanic musical?
Oh, yes.
Based on the James Cameron film?
No, it's
okay.
just based on the Titanic. It has nothing to do with James Cameron.
Okay.
But when the Titanic sinks, let me tell you, the stage separates and it goes on an angle so that the actors who are, let's say, on stage right, that's the part of the stage that goes up into the air.
So the nose of the ship, or would that be the tail of the ship?
Well, because it breaks in half.
Right.
So it's the part that's like sticking up in the air before it sinks
Okay.
down. So the high point would be high stage right, and then the actors were sliding along the deck into the wings of the stage, like screaming and sliding while people were singing at the top, holding on for their lives. And the way they ended the show was the curtain came from the ground. So it came from the stage up, so it looked like you were seeing the last of the boat sink.
Oh.
So that was some stunning staging,
Right.
but I couldn't get past watching these actors slide along the deck of the ship into the wings. I was howling. Like
Was
I was
that the
laughing
end
my
of the show?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's how they ended the show? There was no like uplifting number of survivors or we learned from that mistake type of thing. That's how they ended the
If there was, I don't remember
Okay.
it because I was too busy remembering that moment. Like
That's kind of gloriously amazing.
It's unreal. Like I couldn't believe that I was looking at it. Like,
And did you purposely go to see that one because it was a bomb, or did you go to it because you thought it would be great?
I went to go see it because it had, I don't know if it had won the Tony yet. It won Best Musical, which is to me insane.
Okay.
Like what was its competition that year? I can't remember. But good grief, no.
I'm going to have to watch the Tonys to see if they show.
They don't show that.
Oh, they
part.
don't, or a
they
number.
They do a number
Okay.
though, and it's fine. But
Okay.
it's not the ending of the show, which is just what on earth? What's happening here?
Before we end the show, we've only got a couple minutes left. A very expensive bomb was Spider-Man the musical.
Oh, yes.
Did you see that?
I did.
And?
That might be what helped really solidify what it is that I look for in theater. To
Really?
go see. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I followed that saga. We could do an entire episode just on
And
my
Journey.
obsession with that show.
Okay.
Because I followed it pretty closely while it was happening.
If you're enjoying this episode, please reach out on social media if you want to hear the part 2 where Mark Andrada solely talks about Spider-Man the musical on Broadway. But please tell me what resonated with you or what left a lasting impression with you with Spider-Man the musical.
There were two moments. The first moment was genuinely beautiful, but so expensive and unnecessary. Mary Jane and Peter Parker are sitting on a...
So this is a spoiler alert, but
Yeah.
not that it's going to ever be on stage
it'll
again.
never,
so-
and it'll never be in this.
Okay.
Like nobody will ever sink this kind of money into it again. They're sitting on a fire escape that is hovering in the air, so they're flown in the middle of the stage.
Right.
And upstage of them is a black, like scrim or cyc, with holes punched into it in the shape of a web.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
Cool.
The place is hazed to all heck, And so there's so much haze. And behind that
So
scrim,
if you have asthma, not the place to be.
well, some people think that it triggers their asthma.
Okay.
It's not supposed to.
Okay, fair enough.
And behind that scrim are, I'm going to estimate 25 to 35 intelligent lights that are slowly scrolling and moving that I believe were only used for this purpose.
Amazing.
So they flew in like some truss or something, and they slowly scrolled. So the shafts of light that were coming out from behind, like shining through the dots, like the holes to be a web, are slowly panning and moving. So it's this slow texture behind them. And it was gorgeous. And all I could think was, this one song is very expensive and beautiful. It's so subtle and beautiful. The other moment was I was sitting maybe in the 5th row right on the aisle, and there was a moment when one of the Spider-Men, because there were many of them, came and sat down next to me waiting for his cue to run up on stage.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I was sitting next to my girlfriend at the time, and I tapped her and I was like, hey, there's a Spider-Man. And he was right next to me, and he looked at me and gave me a thumbs up and then got up and ran to the stage. I was like, what am I looking at?
Well, I think we need to end the episode on that because it doesn't get more glorious than that. This wasn't a bomb because I had a great time talking about glorious Broadway bombs with my dear friend, Mark Andrada.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
And your podcast, once again, is called We Like Theme Parks, which you do with Chris Bond and Dustin Foos. And you can find that on iTunes, on Stitcher, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. And I hope we do that part 2.
Yes, please.
As always, we hope that you listen and sleep.